The pledge once, I'm going to go right to roll call. That's all right. I'm sorry. I said we are going to skip the Pledge of Allegiance. We've done that tonight. We're going to go right to roll call.
Nudera?
Here.
Park? Absent. Honquist?
Here.
Estido?
Here.
Mulliner? Absent. Brennan?
Here.
Barimas?
Here.
Deuter?
Here.
Dunn?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Palumsky?
Here.
Jensen? Toludo?
Here.
Cahill?
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum. Any announcements? There being none. Anyone here for public comment, or has anyone signed in, Clerk Tamer?
No, nobody has signed in.
All right. Item 4, business before the committee. We're here, well, actually, let me read this again, just to be safe. The Governor of the State of Illinois has declared a gubernatorial disaster proclamation in response to the COVID-19 outbreak, and all of the City of Elmhurst is covered by the disaster area. In light of the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak, the Mayor of the City of Elmhurst has determined that an in-person meeting for the November 1 Committee of the Whole meeting may not be practical or prudent in light of the disaster. All of the aldermen of the City Council participating in the November 1 Committee of the Whole meeting, wherever their physical location, shall be verified and determined that they can hear one another and can hear all of the discussion and testimony during the meeting. We have no one participating remotely. Business before the committee. We're here for our first night of review for the 2022 budget. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight what we'd like to do is introduce the budget, which was at your dais spots this evening. You received your budget book with the KEB a little bit ago, a month or so ago. So these just slide right in there. What we posted on Board Docs was a budget review schedule. And for those aldermen who haven't been through this before, what we'll do is we'll bring each department director up to the table so that they can introduce and describe their budget, any changes that that go with that. Sometimes we get ambitious on our schedule, but we'll try to get through those that are scheduled for tonight before 10 o'clock. At the next meeting, we will have the library director and board president come. And then we will also have the museum and the foundation board president come and speak and continue on through those items. We have a process, Mayor, that I assume that you will continue, where anybody can ask questions, of course, during the budget time. And if they would like to see something, come back. If there's questions, we can bring those back at the last meeting, if that's the way you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, we'll do it for those aldermen who were here previously the same way we have done it. For the newer aldermen, if there's something that, as the city manager was referencing, if there's an item that we need more information on, or an alderman wants to hold it or to make sure that it is brought back, we call that a circle back, and we will put that on a list so that when we get to the end of the budget process, we will circle back and address those items. I will also tell you that as we go through the budget process, if you have questions that are somewhat specialized, you might want to communicate those to staff in advance so that they can research them, which may obviate the need for circle back. I also will say, however, if you have questions, particularly for the newer aldermen, don't hesitate to ask, because part of the education process is learning what I think the aldermen who've been here for years have gone through, so you know why things are done a certain way. But the budget's very important. It's one of the most important things we do, so don't hesitate to ask if you have a question. The only stupid questions will be those that I ask, so I have a corner on that. The rest of you can ask whatever you want. With that, if you're ready to proceed, City Manager, we'll jump right into it. And whenever we talk about something on the budget, if you are up on the dais and referring to it, please talk about the page and line number. You'll see that each item has a 60-11, whatever, on page 129. We will all know where we are. We are starting with fire protection. So if you open your Think and Do books to page 118.
If I might, I'd like to
You want to do an
some
introduction?
introductory
All right.
comments.
Well, I just want people to get to the right page so we're ready. All right. Go ahead.
I would add to that as well, that if any alderman would like to sit down one-on-one to discuss any portion or all of the budget, please let me know, and I'm happy to schedule that time. So this past fiscal year, the city made great strides in recovery from 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic caused the city to adjust the means and methods in the previous fiscal year to meet the mission of the city, which is to provide responsive and superior governmental services. But city efforts to meet the mission have escalated. During the year, the city received the first of two tranches of the total $6,354,848, which is an allocation of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. The funds are planned to be used for a new ERP system, which is financial software, improved cybersecurity, parking deck repairs, storm station improvement projects, and the remaining for a detention basin repair. The projects further our strategic goals of technology upgrades and stormwater control. The budget accounts for a general fund balance that represents 25 to 33% of the general fund expenditures. However, because of COVID-19 and the resulting revenue decreases, the city reduced non-operational expenditures in 2020 and 2021, and yet revenue decreases were not as severe as anticipated, as the city received grant funding from the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act in 2020 and the aforementioned ARP Act in 2021, thereby strengthening the fund balance. For 2022, the city will resume a pre-pandemic level of capital projects to progress towards achieving the strategic plan goals. Therefore, the fund balance of the general fund is projected to drop to within the range goal in 2022, but below the 25% level in 2023. Capital project planning continues, as I outlined earlier this year with the presentation of the capital expenditure budget. Finance Committee has started discussing revenue priorities and sources and alternatives to fund the critical infrastructure of the city. Proposed revenues for the city of Elmhurst for fiscal year 2022 total $158,077,610. The largest revenue sources are sales, property, and utility taxes, comprising $49,464,000, or 31% of total revenues. That's a decrease of $55,160 from 2021 due to the continued impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Property taxes for the operation of the city are proposed to remain flat and include a shift in the levy from the library debt to stormwater project debt. The levy for public safety pensions is proposed to decrease slightly for the 2021 levy. Sales taxes are projected to remain relatively flat as the economic recovery progresses gradually. Service charges of $34.9 million, or 22% of total revenues, include $28.9 million for water and sewer service charges. In the general fund, which is the major operating fund of the city, the proposed budget expenditures are $75,066,925 for the 2022 fiscal year. Proposed revenues to the general fund are $69,471,080. Excess expenditures over revenues represent a deliberate use of the fund balance of more than $5 million for a projected general fund balance at the end of fiscal year 22 of $15.9 million. This balance falls within the city's fund balance goal policy of 25 to 33% of operating expenditures. The fiscal year 22 municipal 1% sales tax estimate is $13,102,000 and is projected to increase 1% to the amount received in 2021. However, due to the loss of one commercial and industrial business in 2021 that generated significant sales tax revenue, as well as projected reduction in vehicle sales because of ongoing supply issues, the 2022 projected amount remains 4.2% less than the 2019 pre-pandemic revenue. In addition to the municipal 1% sales tax, the city levies a 1% home rule sales tax that funds stormwater and other capital projects, as well as general fund operations. It's projected that FY22 revenues in this category will total $6.655 million. On the prepared food and beverage tax, the 1% prepared food and beverage tax, including packaged alcohol beverages, has traditionally been a consistent and significant contributor to the general fund. FY22 food and beverage tax revenues projected to increase 2% over 2021 estimated revenues to $1.4 million. Additionally, the projected 22 revenue is 3% greater than the 2019 pre-pandemic amount, as Elmhurst restaurants have strongly recovered since the reopening of the economy in 2020. The 2021 property tax levy will be collected in the summer of '22. The general fund portion of the levy assumes continued abatement of the current debt service obligations on all current outstanding debt, but anticipates a shift in the city's general portion of the property tax due to the conclusion of the library debt to be used for stormwater debt. The Finance Committee is reviewing both of those currently. Regarding the public safety pension levies, the city levies for its contribution to the city's pension funds based on current contribution policy, as well as the draft actuarial valuation reports from January of 2021. The good news is a slight decrease is planned for fire pension and only a slight increase to the police pension. They almost balance each other out. Regarding state income tax, our city council policy provides that the City of Elmhurst Capital Improvement Fund receives 80% of the city share of state income tax, while the general fund receives the remaining 20% of the revenue. I should add this, the state income tax is based on population. This ongoing source of revenue to the Capital Improvement Fund allows the fund to respond to the city's infrastructure requirements. It should be noted that continuation of this revenue source is subject to actions by the Illinois General Assembly and Governor, and past legislation has reduced the city's receipts by 5% in 2018, 2019, and a portion of 2020. On the other hand, income tax receipts in 2021 were greater than estimated as a result of strong economic growth in the second half of 2020, increased unemployment benefits, and growth in employment. It is anticipated that income tax receipts will fall 0.5% in 2022 when compared to estimated receipts received in 2021, as Illinois Municipal League 2022 revenue estimates anticipate a reduction from the end of the increased unemployment benefits and a decrease in personal and corporate tax payments. Despite this, though, the city's population growth from the 2020 census will balance out the estimated decrease. In addition, only a modest increase is projected in 2023. The city applies a 1.5 cent per gallon local motor fuel tax, while the proposed while the fiscal year 2022 local MFT revenue is projected at $290,000 and reflects an 8% increase compared to estimated fiscal year 2021 revenue. The 2022 projected amount is 7% less than the 2019 revenue. These funds are designated for stormwater system improvements. Regarding utility taxes, Elmhurst allocates the telecommunication tax revenue that we receive 75% to the general fund and 25% to the capital improvement fund. Fiscal year 2021 estimates for this are 30% less than the fiscal year 2020 actual amounts, and the 2022 budget anticipates a further erosion of revenue, approximately 10% to $836,000. The electric tax 2021 estimated receipts are nearly the same as 2020 revenue, and a 2% increase in revenue is projected for fiscal year 22. The 2021 gas use tax revenue estimate has increased 7% over the 2020, and fiscal year 22 has been projected to increase only 2% because of the unpredictability with this utility tax. The city is midway through a 5-year contract with Republic Services for curbside recycling and rubbish service collections. Projected revenues for fiscal year 22 reflect the terms and pricing of the contract, in addition to a city charge to cover the fall leaf pickup service, the spring cleanup event, and miscellaneous administrative expenses. Recently, the city has started to offer curbside composting. The service is directly billed to the customer by Republic and does not affect this budget. So far, 134 households have subscribed to this service. Regarding licenses and permits, permit fees for fiscal year 21 are estimated at $2.3 million, a 1% decrease from 2020, but a 28% increase over what was budgeted. The 2022 projection is expected to be 27% less than 2021, as the city anticipates a slowdown from the increased construction and remodeling during the early period of the pandemic. While there are several building projects going on throughout the city, the amount is less when compared to prior years. Vehicle license fees are a significant source of revenue, $1.15 million, projected for fiscal year '22, and all proceeds from the vehicle license sales are designated for street improvements. And finally, the cable franchise fee revenues are projected to decrease to $835,000. Much like telecommunication tax, technology changes such as increased reliance on streaming services drives the decrease in cable television use and related franchise fees. Some other significant revenue sources to highlight. Water and sewer rate. Based on the findings of a water sewer rate study completed by Baxter and Woodman, the fiscal year 22 and 23 proposed revenue anticipates additional 2.5% increases to the city portion of the water rate and 2% increases to the DuPage Water Commission rate, as well as a 4.5% increase to the sewer rate. This is to be determined by council action. On the parking system, as a result of COVID-19, it severely curtailed the rail travel to downtown Chicago and related commuter parking. The 2021 estimated fees for parking have decreased by $632,000 or 70% from the 2019 pre-pandemic levels. The 2022 projection of $365,000 will remain 60% below pre-pandemic levels. Total revenue for the parking system is projected to be $584,000 for fiscal year '22, excluding transfers from other funds. Regarding the state motor fuel tax, funds received from the state solely from MFT are restricted by state statute for uses related to roads. The city share of MFT increased significantly in 2020 due to approved legislation in June of 2019, which increased the state's MFT by 19 cents per gallon on gasoline and 24 cents per gallon on diesel fuel. MFT revenues increased further in 2021 due to the increase in fuel consumption as the economy reopened and more people returned to work. 2022 projections for revenue are $2.99 million, which is an increase of $282,000 or 10% when compared to 2021 estimated receipts, as fuel consumption is expected to recover and in small part due to the city's population growth on the 2020 census. Our three remaining tax increment finance districts, 4, 5, and 6, expenditures are really based on the the sign improvement grant, the retail grant, and facade programs. We expect small increases in the EAV of those as we move forward. We have a number of projects that are coming online in each of them, which will help our tax base as the years move forward. Significant expenditure in the downtown TIF would be for the Metro train station, Phase 2 engineering services, and for some utility relocation in an alley between Addison and York. Overall, the equalized assessed value in Elmhurst increased 5.23% for the 2020 levy and is projected to increase 4% for the upcoming 21 levy. Additional new EAV from both residential and commercial building in the city positively impacts the community as those new residents and businesses share in community costs. To date, from September 2021, there was over $224 million in commercial projects taking place within Elmhurst. As part of the O'Hare sub-market location, Elmhurst business parks continue to be highly sought after, and several new Class A modern industrial spec properties are currently in the building process, set to come online in the fourth quarter of this year and the first quarter of next year. With that, it'll bring approximately 769,000 square feet of new space to the Elmhurst market in '22. Elmhurst offers multiple shopping districts throughout the community and likewise is highly sought after for commercial users. Transit-oriented residential developments in the downtown city center remain popular as well. In 2021, the 195 condo building came online, and to date, all 20 units of this luxury property have been sold. The Hill condos are also seeing tremendous interest, with over 75% sold to date. The 212 units of the Finn apartment property, which began leasing late summer, is over 65% occupied and over 75% leased, which is well ahead of their schedule. All of this new development leased space helps to grow our property tax base and diversifies the property tax liability for all of our local government units. This fiscal plan continues to follow recovery from 2020 and, to the extent possible, emphasizes stormwater relief through several projects and policies, economic development to continue Elmhurst's growth, and sustains the city's strong financial position. It's anticipated that the City Council, along with city staff, will be updating the strategic plan this next fiscal year. This is an important exercise for our organization to set the future direction. Tonight and through the next few evenings, we will present a sound fiscal plan for the city of Elmhurst for the next fiscal year, and I request the council's positive consideration. I would like to thank the finance department staff, especially Ryan Bruns to my right, Matt Plyman, who is not here but works with Ryan on all of this budget, Dan Wiersma, and Matt Barron, who is with us this evening as well. Of course, I'd like to thank all the department directors for their input and cooperation during the budget process. So, unless there are questions on my comments, I would like to start by introducing the fire protection budget through Bill Anishevitz. And as Mayor, you noted, that starts on page 118.
All right, any questions from the council before we get into the specific budget? Alderman Polumsky.
I have a question. I was saying I every year I learn something new, and I thank you, City Manager Grabowski. When you were mentioning how our fees generally increase, you know, how most of the fees are on a schedule, what fees do we adjust on our own? Like I'm looking here and see, for example, commercial permit fees effective May 1st, 2021 through April 2022. There are a number of fees. I guess my question is, which fees are within the purview of the council and which ones automatically adjust?
Mayor, can we put that on the circle back list?
Okay, thank you.
All right, first
Thanks.
circle back. There you
Awesome,
go.
thank you.
Thank you.
And I will add, just for the other aldermen, if you see something in our budget review for the newer aldermen and it says, gee, that's a big increase, I wonder why, before you ask the question, what do we call those notes at the end there?
J-form.
J-form. There's a J-form at the end of that section of the budget for any, I believe it's $2,500 or 5% increase will automatically be explained and included on that J-form. So look at that first and you may get the explanation you need. Any other general questions before we move to fire protection? All right, City Manager, if you want to introduce.
Bill Anishevitz, Acting Fire Chief, here to give us some detail on the fire department.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Levin and City Council. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present the 2022 Fire Department budget to you this evening. Before I get into the budget for next year, I wanted to discuss some of our accomplishments in 2021. The core mission of the Fire Department is the protection of life and property throughout our entire community. The continued commitment by you, the council, allows us to provide superior service to our residents, which is what they deserve. In fact, we are on pace to answer over 6,000 calls for service this year. The men and women of the fire department have responded to over 3,400 EMS incidents and 1,800 fire incidents so far, which is an average of 520 calls per month. Rescue One, which was implemented in 2017, continues to provide beneficial service and reduce the need for mutual aid we receive in our town. To accomplish our mission, we continue to put a great emphasis on training in order to keep our personnel prepared for any type of incident that presents itself. Most of this training is conducted at our training facility, which was built in the 1970s and upgraded in 2005. This facility is used not only by our members, but the police department, public works department, and several surrounding agencies. The fire department continues to maintain its ISO Class 1 certification. This certification is based on the city's fire suppression, training, public education, fire prevention, and water distribution system. I have been working with Paul Burris, Utilities Operations Manager, and the Public Works Division to ensure each and every hydrant throughout the city has been checked and can provide the required flows when needed. Our training division has transitioned every member of the organization over to the Target Solutions training platform. This record management system is supported by the Illinois State Fire Marshal and ensures all members complete the minimum 420 hours of training set forth by the State Fire Marshal, the Illinois Department of Labor, and the Emergency Service Medical System. The Public Safety Division, along with the EMS Coordinator, established a coronavirus resource page to educate our firefighters and paramedics and provide recommendations for addressing the coronavirus. The fire department also purchased decontamination equipment and assisted with the sanitation of all city-owned buildings. The fire department sanitizes each one of its vehicles, the ambulances, and all of the equipment on the vehicles twice a day and after significant incidents. Due to the COVID pandemic, the Public Education Division produced several videos that have been used in place of in-person training throughout the city. The programs covered fire and life safety, station tours, and an overview of the fire department operations. We have implemented the countywide fire station alerting system that was purchased through the ETSB. The countywide dispatch system reduces the amount of public safety answering points throughout the county, improves the efficiency of dispatch, and decreases response times throughout our jurisdiction. In 2021, we hired 2 firefighters off the list that has just expired to replace those who have recently retired. Finally, in 2021, all chief officers within the department have attended an executive leadership and coaching class presented at the Elmhurst Public Library through the Academy on Leadership, and the entire officer staff attended leadership training through the Illinois Fire Service Institute. Our goals for 2022. Our number one goal will always be firefighter safety. We will develop strategies and implement training programs to enhance firefighter health and safety and survival, and I will ensure that supervisors and employees take an active role in their personal safety and the safety of their crews. I plan to initiate the fire department assessment process through the International Fire Chiefs Association. This assessment will utilize strategic planning to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the fire department and help improve operations to ensure we are providing the most effective and efficient service to the residents. I will establish a partnership with Lexipol Management to develop and update standard operating policy manuals, training bulletins, and enhance the safety of our members within the organization. We did receive a grant through the Illinois American Water and our risk fund, IPRF, to offset the cost of this management program. We will continue to assist in addressing the needs of adjacent unincorporated areas surrounding the city and assess the increased cost for providing services to these areas. The department will seek additional funding and apply for state and federal grants to help offset the cost of new equipment and resources that are needed and reduce the impact on the city's general fund. We will replace all mobile and portable radios that the fire department owns through the Emergency Telephone System Board. The current radios utilized each and every day are at the end of life and no longer supported. The cost of the new radios will entirely be covered by the ETSB. Finally, I have been in conversation with Manager Grabowski, and we are planning to hire firefighters from our eligibility list once it is finalized later this month, bringing us back to full staffing. The written test is November 6th, and we have had over 150 applications for this position of firefighter, which is well above the numbers for surrounding departments in our area. I would now like to talk through the capital expenditure budget, which will allow us to purchase and repair items for the department over the next 5 years. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the fire department, as well as other departments throughout the city, has decided to delay purchases that were not critical to providing life safety service to our residents. Under line item 8009, the department applied for a FEMA grant in 2021 to replace a source capture system for Fire Station Number 2. This grant is in the amount of $65,000, and if successful, will replace a system that is over 20 years old. The system that is currently placed at Fire Station 2 was removed from the old station before it was demolished and installed inside of the new building. If we are unsuccessful in securing this grant project, the project will be delayed until 2023. The second capital expenditure is 8023, and it's $250,000 in repairs and improvements to the training facility. As I mentioned earlier, our training facility is from the late 1970s and is on the north side of Elmhurst at 910 North Addison Road. The tower does generate revenue as it is used by other departments from all over Cook and DuPage. And we have even hosted some national firefighter safety and survival classes at the facility. This project actually began in 2017 when we had an outside consultant provide a scope of work and a plan to repair the facility. Due to the increased construction costs for both work and materials, we took some of the remaining funds from 2021 and moved them into 2022 and spread the upgrade out over the next few years. The third item under capital is we are due to replace one of our fire engines in 2023. The original plan was to purchase this vehicle in 2022, but it was put off again due to the impact of COVID-19. I am constantly assessing the need and the way the fire department responds to incidents within our city. I will look at all operations and make the appropriate recommendations that will reduce the financial impact on the overall operating budget when the time comes to replace a vehicle. As we go through the operating budget on page 118 and 119, I would like to point out a few things. If you look at line item 10-01, which is the full-time wages, you will notice a drop in 2021 due to the fact that we had several open positions. In 2022, you will see an increase that reflects the wage increase in the collective bargaining agreement and back to full staff. Line item 10-02, wages part-time, you can see is significantly under budget in 2021, again, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the effect it had on our school programs and presentations. I also asked the department training officers to complete their training while they are on shift. I have left the full amount in this line item in anticipations of programs starting again and to possibly hire a training officer who will not be on shift to oversee the department training and fire prevention programs. Line item 10-06, sick payout is again is high due to unforeseen retirements within the department. And finally, 50-01 is for building maintenance and improvements to both Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2. Due to the age of the building of Fire Station 1, which was built in 1980, I left an additional amount in that line item for repairs and encumbered it from 2021. I truly thank you for supporting the fire department and its mission. I would also like to thank the firefighters and paramedics who go above and beyond each and every day to provide the actual service, deliver public safety programs, and respond to all of the incidents. At this time, I would be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much. We're ready for discussion on fire protection. Alderman Honquist.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the Mayor mentioned tonight, this will be my 9th budget, and it takes quite a while, in my opinion, to understand all the different operations of the city and what's behind all the dollars and line items that are on this budget. I do think we have an excellent fire department. I do think there are opportunities to reduce our expenditures in the fire department. In general, I'm concerned, like a lot of people, that what's going on in Elmhurst and around Chicago is a trend with a lot more crime. And when I look at public safety, I look at fire and I look at police. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead to the police side, but give me a moment. And so as I think about this budget and I think about future budgets with the city, I'd like to look at some creative ideas on how we can maintain our service levels with the fire department while reducing some costs in an effort to potentially open additional budget that could be leveraged for police. And then likewise, I'll comment when we get to the police on some of my thoughts there. But I guess my challenge is it's never easy to look at a budget and say, I got to go try and take something out. But in my time here, I think that there's opportunities to do so, and I'd like to explore those. And obviously, I'm open to conversations, after tonight. But that's my opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Honquist. Other questions, discussion? Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, you mentioned the training tower generates revenue. I don't recall hearing about that, and I'm wondering how much it is and if it's significant enough that it's earmarked for a particular use.
Alderman Deuter, the revenue is dependent on the class that's being held at the facility and the amount of students that are in that class. The revenue that's generated normally goes to offset materials that are used for the class and some of the, to pay the instructors that are there for the week-long class or whatever it may be. And what we're trying to do is to get additional revenue to help offset some of the repairs and maintenance that has to be done at the training facility. So we do generate revenue. I don't think it's significant enough to generate a specific line item. It goes to maintenance and repairs in the training tower and to pay the instructors that are there for the week.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Dunn.
Yes, just a question on the vehicle purchase on page 119, the capital outlay 80-06. What type of vehicle is in the plan for 2023?
Alderman Dunn, we're looking at a fire engine to replace one of our oldest engines we have in our fleet. So we currently run with 2 frontline engines and 2 reserve engines, which we unfortunately use quite often due to maintenance issues and servicing of the frontline equipment. So we have an engine that's 19 years old and at its end of service. We're going to try to delay that as far as we can. I've been talking to City Manager Grabowski about this, and it was, like I said, in the 2022 budget, and we moved it to 23. And we'll take a look at that as we move forward before any decisions are made.
Thanks.
Alderman Brennan.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. I'm on page 118, line item 3029, under contractual services. I'm familiar with DUCOM. The fuel, is that a contract that have we pre-negotiated, fuel rates?
Yeah, so our fuel is purchased through a co-op, and this is basically just the fire department's share of that. It's purchased through Public Works and held at the Public Works facility, and we do use a competitive bid process co-op for that.
Okay. Well, one thing that I don't necessarily see in here, and I'm not an expert on inflation, but I can go and have dinner, and it's clearly costing more, to buy something, whether it's dinner or whether it's clothes. I'm a little, just in general, I'm a little concerned is inflation being factored into some of these estimates, and I'm not the person to put a lens on this, but that's just a general statement. And I would be, maybe it's a circle back item, what is our potential exposure associated with not making the appropriate assumptions around just inflation, costs?
Alderman Brennan, is that on fuel or more generally?
Just in general.
Okay.
I mean, not just the fire department. But I look at some of the year over year run rates for some of these costs, and some of them are flat or even less, and I just don't know if that represents the economy that we're in. Can I have one more question?
Sure, proceed.
So you refer to a fire engine, and we need backups because of wear and tear. Makes sense to me. What drives the wear and tear on the equipment? Is it just every time it leaves the station? Every mile that it takes? I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a fireman, so I'm at a disadvantage here. But what drives the wear and tear on these assets?
That's exactly it. The wear and tear, going to these runs, starting it, driving to the incident, coming back, shutting it down. We try to alternate these vehicles from time to time just to reduce some of the mileage and maintenance that has to be done on the apparatus. We always plan for a 20-year life of these vehicles and then try to phase them out. And most of all of our apparatus has reached a 20-year mark. Since we are rotating these vehicles more often, we're able to get a little bit more time out of these vehicles, and that's what we're working on right now is alternate vehicles and taking some of the calls off of the heavier, bigger trucks and assigning them to the smaller engine companies.
Okay. Are there opportunities to reduce miles in general with how we deploy the equipment on certain calls?
Maybe defer it to another vehicle, but not to eliminate it. We have to respond. So I think we're continually looking at ways to reduce the wear and tear on the vehicles. And again, maybe going with smaller vehicles that won't require as much maintenance and fuel costs and things like that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Nudera.
What would the average miles per year be on, say, one of the vehicles?
I'd have to get that back for you, Alderman Nudera. I know that our truck, when we just recently sold our truck and purchased a new one, it had over 100,000 miles, and that was a 20-year lifespan on it. So I'd say the older vehicles are at the 80 to 90,000 mile mark.
Alderman Deuter.
Thank you. Chief, can you talk about, this is page 119, line 60-89, and it's the First Responders Memorial, budgeted at 100,000 in 21, 22, and 23. Can you just talk a little bit about what that is and where the source of revenue for those funds?
Many years ago, we were lucky enough to get a piece of the 9/11, the World Trade Center that was brought to Fire Station 2. And our plan at the time was to build a memorial in front of the station to put it on display for the residents of Elmhurst. And we've been working with the Elmhurst Arts Commission, the Elmhurst University, and several agencies throughout the community to try to build a permanent display for this piece of rail that we have. This is a place mark in the actual budget. The firefighters and the foreign fire taxes contributed $35,000 to this fund. So there's not, this is what was estimated to be raised for a project. We do not have a current estimate as of yet. We're still working with the university to come up with a final price on the memorial that'll be in front of Station 2, but that's what that line item is in place for, to construct and develop the monument there.
Just ask a follow-up question. Just as a follow-up, same line, in 2021, we show 100,000 budgeted and 100,000 estimated. What do you expect to be the total cost, and have we spent any of that yet? Was that spent in 2021?
No, it was not spent at all. We were trying to get this project off the ground and started. We wanted to break ground to get the footings in to start building the memorial. And unfortunately, due to COVID and some issues we were having with the artist, we were not able to do it this year. So we're going to bring it over to 2022 and hopefully get the whole thing finished. I don't believe it's going to be under $100,000. I think we're going to have to do some additional fundraising to get above $100,000, but we're going to build the project in phases. So as we start and get the footings in, so we're able to pour the foundation for the rail to go on, we will then update the city council and with the next steps that we will take to build a memorial.
So fair to say this is a placeholder?
Correct.
The dollar amount?
Yes.
Is a placeholder? Okay.
And just for clarification, because I had a question on that myself. So when it first blushed, it looked like a $300,000 memorial, but you're saying it's probably in the $100,000
That's correct,
range?
Mayor. Yes.
All right, thank you. Other discussion, questions? Alderman Dunn.
Yes, this might be more for the city manager, and it's both revenue-oriented and expenditure-oriented. I know the fire protection district in the northeast end of town, I think it's Bensonville Fire Protection maybe, is looking at, there's a move to maybe move them elsewhere, which could impact our revenues, and I'm wondering if it impacts our staffing and equipment requirements. So are we assuming that they are staying with the budget we have?
Yes is the short answer for now. Mayor, Acting Chief, and I have been in discussions regarding this. Just to expand a little bit, so there's two fire protection districts that are north of us, Bensonville Fire District 1 and Bensonville Fire District 2. Bensonville Fire District 2 is an active fire department with vehicles and staffing. Fire District 1 is a paper district. So they had a small area of that they have now divided contractually, half or so to 40% to Elmhurst and 60% to Fire Protection District 2. There was a bill that was introduced in the spring session or fall, maybe it was the fall, that was going to dissolve District 1, which is what Alderman Dunn is talking about, and move everything to District 2. As I said, we currently protect 40% of the district. We also get 40% of the property tax that District 1 levies. District 2 gets the 60%. If the District 1 gets dissolved, then, and District 2 picks it up, then they would get 100% of the money. They would be expected to provide 100% of the coverage. However, what we expect to happen in that scenario is that we would still respond to a portion of the District 1 area because we're closer. It's the unincorporated area that's south of Grand Avenue. And so we have great concern over that and the other part of that is we would not reduce our staffing or equipment because the area is small enough that it really wouldn't justify reducing the equipment and the manning and the budget for the fire department. So we are continuing to work on that. We were to have a meeting this week. However, I don't think that's going to be postponed so that we can work on a few more data points for that.
Alderman Palomsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the information. My questions are really more related to the revenue side of fire, so it's page 90. Couple of questions. So on actually page 91, item 39-00, the false alarm fee. Just want to confirm, although this is something that could be the will of the council, if we change some of the rules around when a false alarm fee is triggered. As you know, we went through our review, there are quite a few responses to those. So I just want to point that out. There may be an opportunity there. But I have I guess a couple questions. Looking at the the First Responders Memorial on page 90, is it just to, like those small dollar amounts, is that just to show that there's at least some revenue expected as donation?
Which line number, please?
Sorry, 3600. Is that the one that we're talking about with the?
Donations, yes. Yeah, throughout the year, we've received some small donations from residents, and that has been placed in this line item to show what was collected.
Okay, so up above there, item 05-00. I don't remember seeing this before. Interest on fire equipment, interest income. What is this tied to?
I'll ask Ryan to assist me with this answer.
That is the interest income earnings on the foreign fire funds.
Okay, I thought I saw them separately. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Alderman Toledo.
Just since we're on that page 90 and Alderman Dunn brought up the topic, is the page 90 line item 25-00, is that the revenue that we receive from that, covering that Bentonville district, the 530,000? And is that the potential that we could lose? No. Or,
No.
What is that then, and how do we, can we quantify the value of the potential loss of that revenue from the Bensonville Fire Protection District?
So annually, we receive somewhere between $90,000 and $100,000 for that. That's our 40%.
And so what's this, sorry, then?
Service. That's the wireless radio? Yeah, we believe that, yeah, wireless radio.
Okay. Thank you.
And that doesn't include any payments from insurance companies or anything like that, like that we bill out medical, that doesn't go in here? Okay.
Correct.
Alderman Brennan?
Thank you. So going back to the equipment and the miles, and I should know the term, but I forget it off the top of my head, but I know we assist communities and, you know, they assist us. There's a term for that, right?
Mutual aid.
Mutual aid, yes. So, when mutual aid is, you know, when we're helping out another community, for example, let's just keep it simple, one fire call, you know, it's mileage, it's wear and tear on our equipment, you know, so the revenue or coverage that we get from that call, are we breaking even with that level of support? Or are we absorbing the wear and tear on our equipment? I'm just wondering what that financially looks like.
On the EMS side, when we provide assistance or mutual aid to our surrounding communities, we do collect the revenue, and that is built into the cost of the ambulance billing. For the fire department response to another community, we do not bill each other. It's kind of an agreement that we have to help each other out when the need is there. We try to make sure that no one abuses our services, and if we, you know, get into that situation, I'll reach out to the chief of the other department to discuss. But right now, there is no fees involved with, it's under our own budget.
Okay, thank you.
City Manager.
Mayor, I have one clarification to Alderman Polomsky's question regarding the revenue for the First Responders Memorial. If you look at page 91, line item 24-04, that's the donations that we expect. The one we were looking at on page 90 was interest on those donations,
Okay,
just to be
thank
clear.
you.
Because it was a little odd when it looked like we were getting $10
Yeah,
per month
okay.
donation. per
Thanks.
year.
Big donations. Additional conversation on fire protection. Alderman Udera.
Thank you. When it comes to mutual aid, how about the state? Do they refund or put any monies if you're dealing with anything on 294, 290, you know, I-88? I mean, I'm sure you guys have been out there helping out. Is there any revenue that comes from that?
The Mavis, Illinois agreement, they do provide reimbursement if we're actually activated as a task force call-out to respond. 294 does provide revenue compensation to departments that respond up there. At this time, we do not respond unless we're called mutual aid to like Oak Brook. That may change with the on and off ramp off of County Line Road in the future here. But right now, the state, Illinois State, does not provide us for anything on the 290.
Okay, additional discussion, questions? Councilman Brennan.
Sorry, where is the line item that covers, you know, maintenance on our vehicles? It's not jumping out at me.
9503, Alderman Brennan, is some of the services at the
Gotcha.
garage.
Okay. All right, thank you.
If I might expand on that, Mayor, just for clarification to aldermen who haven't seen the budget before, we do spread costs like our IT services, our garage services, healthcare, overall the departments based on a formula. So you'll see those numbers vary from department to department.
Is that what, excuse me, is that the data processing? Is that one of the ones you're talking about?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Where's that?
All right, we may be at the end here, last call on fire protection. All right, thank you, Chief. We'll move on.
Well, Mayor, actually, he has two more budget areas that he'll stay up here for, the wireless radio and the ESDA civil defense.
Well, I was with you on that one, believe it
Okay,
or
I'm
not.
sorry.
But I was just saying,
I'm
we're done with fire protection. So we'll go on
Okay.
to page 121.
And Mayor Levin, the only line item that I'll point out is 4041, and that's radio supplies and parts. You'll see that that's a little low for 2022, and that's because we did order a surplus of radio alarms and wireless alarms that we have in stock, and we do not have a need to purchase any additional alarms, and that's why that line item is a little bit low.
Do you want to explain for the new alderman what we're talking about?
Okay. So for all the businesses within Elmhurst, we have an agreement that they install a wireless radio alarm that monitors the fire activity in the building. If the alarm goes off, we respond with the fire department to check for the issue, and it protects the occupancy and any residents inside the structure. They do pay us a fee that we're in the midst of negotiating here coming up shortly with Ducom and the alarm monitoring company. But that is a fee that is generated for the city on behalf of the fire alarm, the wireless alarm.
All right, and there's a corresponding revenue line for this, just so that,
Yes, there is.
that with the radio alarm services? No.
For free today.
25 and 26 on what?
Page 90 and 25 and 26 line item.
Okay. Okay. Any questions on wireless radio alarm services? Alderman Deuter.
Thank you. On the question that was just asked on page 90, is the wireless radio both of those fees, the fire protection services and radio alarm services? And why are they two separate lines, if that's the case?
I believe 26 is specific to the wireless radio alarm services, fire protection services.
Regarding line item 25, fire protection services, I think we need to get back to you, Alderman, on that one. Ryan and I are talking that it is, we believe it's the fees, part of the fees that Bentonville 1 pays, part of the fees that Yorkfield pays, but I want to be sure of that.
Okay, and
Back on the detail with that.
just to be clear, then the 565 is the wireless radio revenue for
Correct.
2022. Perfect.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right, last call on wireless. All right. Moving on to emergency services, page 122.
Those of you may know, we have the Emergency Operations Center in the basement of Fire Station Number 1. If you haven't had an opportunity to see it, any of the new aldermen, please reach out and I'll be happy to give you a tour of the facility. Don Novak is the emergency manager for the city of Elmhurst. You'll see his salary at the top of the line items here for the emergency management. Most of his salary is covered by a grant through the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The rest of his budget that was submitted has fallen in line with the previous years. I think 4075 rescue equipment. He purchases radios and supplies computers to the Mobile Incident Command Center. This is the mobile command that's at Station 1. It's been utilized at several incidents throughout the city.
Discussion on ESDA. Alderman Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious about the consultant fees that are listed there. Is that ongoing consultancy?
That's for the tornado sirens and some of the radio equipment that's inside the MIC, the Mobile Incident Command Center, and that is an annual contract that we pay to Federal Signal to monitor and make sure they test the alarms on a monthly basis and let us know if there's any maintenance required.
Thank you.
Alderman Dunn.
Yeah, the last line item, the fee for the garage services. Does Don get a car? I'm surprised that there's, I mean, that's about a third of his salary to pay for the repairs to the car.
He currently does have a take-home vehicle. He does respond in for any emergency throughout the city. We use him quite often during storms and any large-scale event that the city hosts. So, you know, he does have a take-home vehicle, and then some of this is also for the Mobile Incident Command Center as well.
Alderman, if you'd like, we could have that available for the second ward meeting for residents to take a look at.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, other ESDA questions, discussion? All right. Then we are going to move on to the police department.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. So we will proceed to Police Department budget, which starts on page 125. And I will turn the mic over to Chief Ruth.
Like one of those middle names, the chief. All right. Yeah.
Mike gets the mic.
I'll give him the mic. Good evening. I will just go over a few highlights and changes to our budget in the police department, and then open it up to any questions that you may have or issues that you'd like to have clarified. Under 1002 for part-time wages, we're looking for an increase to 263, and the reason for that is the creation of a traffic safety intern program, which would employ 2 interns during the summer months that will be responsible for the deployments and help us support some of the speed measuring devices and calming devices. We expect that to be about $10,800. We would utilize those, or the traffic safety interns, between Memorial Day and Labor Day. In addition, we'd also be looking at the addition of a part-time crime prevention officer whose duties would include developing and executing some crime prevention presentations, community outreach and prevention efforts, establishing better contact and an information flow with the businesses of our community, such as the financial institution, the car dealerships, who have, so when we notice some crime trends occurring, we can gather that information and share it with them. Currently we do it, but we take a patrol officer off of the street, out of their beat, away from their patrol duties. So we just think that this new addition will help free up some of the patrol officers' times and have them better directed at law enforcement services. One of the other areas that we're looking at an increase would be 4031, which is minor equipment. We'd be looking for replacement of 4 evidence technicians' cameras, ET cameras, that have a cost of about $5,000. We'd also be looking at the purchase of crime scene imaging device, which is a $50,000 cost. And what the crime scene imaging device would do is it would memorialize crime scenes for forensic analysis to aid in criminal apprehensions. So what it would do is it would allow a 360 view digitally for a room or a location at a crime scene. So in the event when there's a trial and it goes to court, we would be able to pull up real-life photos, or basically a live video, to show where everything was at in the room or at the scene of a crime. We currently do it now with photography. So we take pictures of things, and if it's required to go to court, we blow it up real big, and it's not interactive, and it doesn't always give a good reference point in terms of where something is and what distance is to something else. So it's kind of like a 360 view that you'd see in some of the real estate listings that are pretty commonplace nowadays. The other thing we're looking to do is expand is the purchase of a drone to assist us with crash reconstruction, evidence collection, and missing persons. Under 5017, we're looking at a $5,000 increase to purchase some equipment for new portable radios that we are anticipating that will be coming in 2022. The current portables that our officers and service officers carry are in excess of 10 years old, so they're reaching the end of their useful life. The DuPage ETSB previously had funded the purchase of the portable radios for us, so we're anticipating some of the accessories that we currently have will not be interchangeable. So we want to make sure that we don't just get new portables next year and then not have the batteries, the radio microphones, and the other support things that would be required to do that. In number 6027, is asset forfeiture. And we're currently in the process, the asset forfeiture cannot be used to supplant any current budget or equipment for the police department. Oftentimes we will put it as a placeholder until we're able to determine the use. We're required to use the funds within 3 years of the award. So with that in mind, we are looking at researching the feasibility of an additional canine dog to have on hand in the city. And we're looking at those numbers, and we're just trying to determine the feasibility for that. And the second thing that we are looking at is it's called a MEGAT system, or a firearms training simulator. It's a scenario-based firearms and tactical training. There's a new mandate by the state through the legislature that requires law enforcement officers to receive scenario-based training. And we're seeking clarification from the State Training Board if this scenario-based training simulator would meet that qualification. We have a training-based simulator. It's probably 15 years old. It hasn't been working in the almost 9 years that I've been here, so we'd be looking at replacing that and then utilizing that to better train our officers for de-escalation techniques and to have our officers better prepared for events that they may encounter on the street. And then 4001, we're seeing a significant increase in ammunition and across the country. So we placed an order for ammunition about 10 months ago, and we're still waiting for its arrival. So we're anticipating a $10,000 increase for ammunition costs for 2022. And if anybody has any additional questions, we can.
All right, let's start with Alderman Palomsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Chief, for the information and the presentation. My question relates to the asset forfeiture revenue. Just looking at it, seems to be, it varies widely. So 2019 actual, this is on page 91, was $314,959, and estimated for 2021 was $35,000. I mean, I know COVID clearly had an impact, but what accounts for even just that, it's less than a third projected for 2022 than it was in 2019? What accounts for that?
Yeah, I think COVID-19 is significant on it, and not just because the awarding of funds has to be set by the federal courts. And because court, in essence, for almost 10, 11 months was non-existent, the awards were not given out. So we saw it grind almost to a halt, and it recently has just started picking up.
Okay.
I know within the last 30 days there was an award that came to us.
Thank you.
Alderman Bastido.
This is where I worry about this sounding like a dumb question as the new person, but what is the forfeiture expenses? I just am not familiar with what that is. And did you say the K-9 that you're thinking about getting is related to that?
Yes. If
Could you maybe talk a little bit about how the forfeitures come about?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, start with that.
All right. The forfeiture accounts come through, we categorize them operationally in three different categories. The first, considered part of asset forfeiture, is the DUI Tech Fund. And the DUI Tech Fund it has a specific use for technology related to the enforcement of driving while impaired. And oftentimes those are awarded as a result of a guilty verdict against someone, and they have to pay a fine. So that's one area that comes out. The other is seizure at the state level and seizure at the federal level. We've got an officer assigned in a federal partnership to the DEA task force. And let's talk about the state ones first. For example, if an officer stops a car and the driver is a two-time convicted offender for DUI, and he's driving DUI again, sometimes the court will award us the vehicle, and so the vehicle then is disposed of, sold, and those monies go into asset forfeiture. Also, if it's related to a drug offense, and it has to be awarded by the courts, that's done at the state level. At the federal level, the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, may work large or significant cases where significant amounts of heroin are being seized. And with the apprehension with the seizure of a heroin drug or some other drugs, there's $1 million with that. That money is held, and a judge makes a determination to give the drugs back to the defendant, which doesn't happen. Well, I guess it could. And then maybe the money is seized, unless they can show proof that it was properly, gainfully obtained. So, and that's usually done by an award of the court. So the court would award it, and then percentages are broken up by a percentage goes to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and a percentage goes to the agencies that participated in the seizure. And then after a period of time, those funds are distributed to those individual departments that participated in the arrest and seizure of the narcotics and assets. So that's how it comes in to us. And we can't use that. We're governed by laws through asset forfeiture, for the federal asset forfeiture and the state asset forfeiture, and how we can spend that. So we're not allowed to supplant anything. So we're not allowed to say, hey, listen, we won't purchase 5 new police cars this year. We'll just take it out of the asset forfeiture fund. You're not allowed to do that. But if we were to expand our fleet by 5 cars, we could certainly do that. So we're really restricted in terms of what we can purchase for that, out of that asset forfeiture fund. And it's supposed to be used within 3 years, excuse me, 3 years of the award. So we're always kind of watching that just to make sure, and they have the ability to, claw back that asset if it hasn't been used. So we can't just put it in a savings account and then save it to try to build it bigger and bigger. We have to show use and how we utilize that. So we use it to purchase new equipment, new items, some new technology. Not again as a replacement to a budgetary issue, but more of an expansion. So we currently have 1 canine dog, and that dog is purchased, and all the expenses are funded through the asset forfeiture program. So we're looking at the feasibility of a second dog, and if so, we would use monies from the asset forfeiture, so it would not have a budgetary general budget impact.
So, thank you for explaining the revenues, like the revenues that we get from forfeitures, but then the expenses that you have listed, that would be the K-9, the 147 that you have on?
That, along with the scenario-based training modulator.
Okay,
it's
so
a
all
mega
the different ways that you would use it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear, you can't supplant existing whatever it is in your budget. So you can't say, oh, we got 50,000 in asset forfeiture, so we'll, instead of funding what we normally fund under our municipal budget, we'll fund it through that. It's got to be something new and different. That's where we're getting. Alderman Jensen.
With those funds, so you add a K-9 potentially, and, over the life of the K-9, you use forfeiture funds to maintain the dog and feed the dog? Or is that something that has to come out of our budget every year after that?
Yeah. I would be looking at funding it completely through asset forfeiture, and that would include the vehicle, any additional training for the officer, the purchase of the dog, and any additional training that the officer may require as a result of that. So anything that would have a nexus back to the canine would have eligibility for asset forfeiture.
But like in 2025, for example, like the dog food you could pay for out of this fund, like the forfeiture expenses, or would that just be on our standard budget?
The food and
in the year
care for
2020.
Food and care, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's eligible for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Dog biscuit, yeah, I sign off on dog biscuits from time to time. It's not one of the prouder moments of my job.
All right, Alderman Toledo.
Thank you. We've spoken a lot in years past about the license plate readers, and I saw in your 2021 accomplishment list earlier in the budget book about how successful that program continues to be. My question is, I don't remember from last year, but my question is, is every intersection in Elmhurst covered that you think is valuable to have coverage at?
No. We've got some issues with the Illinois Department of Transportation allowing us to utilize their right-of-way to install a pole or to install a camera or to affix a camera, maybe to a light that they may have. So we've been working with IDOTs in the hopes that they will loosen up their policy a little bit. I'd like to see some more camera coverage on Route 83. We've worked around it in some other locations. So we may not have it exactly at the intersection, but we go down a block or two where it kind of chokes down from maybe 4 lanes down to 2 in each direction. So we've done that at a few locations, but yeah, we would certainly like to get some cooperation from IDOT and allow us to put some more cameras up.
Please.
So is that a budgetary restriction, like you don't have enough money to do it, or is it a working with another government agency?
So it's a holdup with IDOT on the right-of-way use. We have the budgeted funds. The council is very supportive of that. I had an occasion recently at the IML conference to be next to the director of the state police. And so I sat with him for a few minutes and told him what we were trying to do and how beneficial it is to both agencies as ISP is starting to put cameras on all the expressways as well. And so Chief Ruth has made contact with Brendan Kelly, Mr. Kelly, as the director to try to help us with IDOT. So thank you. So the answer is not yet, not no.
And we've spoken with other mayors and managers. I'd say we're out in front on this. They're now looking at the program, and some of them are running into the same problem with state highways and not being able to use the asset to put our cameras there. Alderman Nudera, then Alderman Honquist.
Thank you. When you mentioned seized vehicles in your asset forfeiture, aren't those vehicles going to auction? You mentioned the word disposed. Weren't those vehicles go to auction to have some kind of revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
Disposed, being sent to auction.
Right.
Alderman Honquist.
Hi, Chief. So I know we've talked, we've had an interesting year this year in town with crime in some areas. And we've talked, you can't just hire one officer, you usually have to hire, I think it's 4, right, to cover the shifts. So my question to you is, do you think we need to hire more officers? And you don't necessarily need to answer it right now. It goes to some earlier comments you weren't here. But I'm interested in general, are there things, almost dovetailing on Alderman Toledo's comments, from a budget perspective where we could look to do other things to enhance our police force that maybe you weren't thinking about coming into this year and even into this budget? But I'd like to, I guess, ask you again to think through it, and if there are items we could add to the budget to help improve our policing, whether that is police officers or that's other technology or the like. I'd like to circle back on that, Jim, and then if you have any comments right now, that's fine too, Chief.
Yeah, and in terms of additional staffing and manpower, I guess, law enforcement across the country is experiencing staffing shortages, and so it's we're not unique, but I think before I can ask for additional personnel, I need to fill the vacancies that I currently have, and we're experiencing as agencies from Newport Beach, California to New Jersey. That there's a shortage of people that want to be police officers. And for a variety of reasons, I think if you watch the news and it's, the police aren't real popular right now. We're losing a lot of people as a profession, people that have just said, hey, I'm done, I'm walking away. They took the job to help people and to be the good guy, and they're kind of getting beat up by everybody. So, we recently gave a written examination for a police officer, and the Fire and Police Commission put together a list of 35 eligible candidates who passed the written exam. In the past, it had been several hundred. So, but that's consistent with what everybody else is seeing in the region. So what happens is, all the agencies, there's less interest in somebody being a police officer today. And those that have expressed interest, more agencies are competing to try to capture that very small group of people that want to be police officers. So we did interviews tonight, oral interviews for police officer. We did We did 4 tonight, and we're going to do another 4, I believe, on Wednesday night to try to fill some current vacancies. So my wish is I would like to see us get to current staffing, and then once I get there, assess and evaluate. And if I need more personnel, I'll certainly, come to the manager and the council to ask for that additional staffing. But I think what we need to do is to operate smarter, and we need to leverage the technology that we have to help us be much more successful and to keep our communities safe. We're doing that through the LPRs. We've had great luck and success with that. We're chasing people, we're chasing criminals out of town in the overnight hours and also sometimes during the day. And they're hitting other communities. We're seeing trends now where it's, whether it's, breaking into car dealerships to steal cars, and they're using the cars to commit felonies, to commit other violent crimes. They're involved in shootings and stuff. So utilizing those LPRs has been critical for us, and that's great. And there's several other things that I've placed in the budget to try to take away some of the ministerial tasks that we've placed on our police officers so they can more focus their attention to patrolling their assigned area. And having a crime prevention officer taking care of some of those tasks, and then having some people for traffic interns to help for the deployment and the collection of data for speed in our residential streets is going to help us work smarter and to be more effective. Again, looking at the possibility of having an additional canine may help us with our apprehensions. And I talked about a couple of other things that will help us in terms of apprehending criminals. And I would very much like for anyone out there who's got evil on their mind to know that they will be relentlessly pursued by the Elmhurst Police Department. So don't come here if you're going to commit a crime. And that's a way to keep our community safe and to kind of set that tone in terms of how we're going to respond to those issues.
Okay.
Alderman Honquist, would you like to leave that as a circle back?
I would.
right.
If there's other items you can think of, or even if it comes back to budget for higher wages at this point, that's what I'm hearing. And part of this conversation, you didn't say it, I guess I inferred it, as far as trying to recruit and hire and or retain people. So any of those items, I guess I'd be curious about. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Some departments are paying cash bonuses, believe it or not.
Yes, they are. And I just learned tonight that one of our officers will be leaving our agency, and he's going down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and there's a bonus involved with that. So agencies are now putting cash bonuses. I believe Elk Grove has done it. I believe Aurora has done it, and they're doing that to try to attract people. These are unprecedented times in my career that I've never seen anything like this.
I was glad to see you had a drone and not a helicopter, but we'll...
A little smaller.
Alderman Brennan.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a couple of questions. As I look at 2022, Chief, it looks like you're assuming that you do successfully fill your head count, but you have a safety net there of $900K in overtime. So realistically, how does this play out? I mean, how many open heads do you have right now? And realistically, if you got on a good streak, could we get to filling those head count, by, early next year?
Well, it depends, because if we're able to hire already trained and certified police officers, they're not required to go through the police academy. So there are some people at the top of our eligibility list who interviewed favorable. You know, the Fire and Police Commission will have to make a determination and a vote on this later this week. But there are some people that are already certified trained police officers, which means they don't have to go to an academy. And how does that affect us? That's about 3 months. We get them on the street 3 months sooner. So that can impact the number in our staffing levels. The other thing is sickness, illness, injury, pregnancy, family medical leave. All of those things also can factor in. If somebody, you know, breaks a leg cleaning the gutter or something, and they're not available on the street, so that can impact our manpower and staffing at that particular time. The overtime is available for us to backfill positions. We do use that on an as-needed and appropriate basis. Our overtime went down the last 2 years, really COVID-related, because the courts were canceled. There were minimal court appearances. It's just now starting to pick up. Many of our special events were canceled or postponed, and there was that. So we began to see that overtime, you know, not be utilized, excuse me, as much. So I anticipate, hopefully, the world will get back to normal, and you know, we'll be in full swing. So if we experience manpower staffing, we can plug it in. If we experience a crime trend or some other issue where I want to deploy, or the supervisors on the street feel that they want to deploy additional personnel during a set time frame, or maybe to watch out for a certain crime spree, they have that latitude in which to do that, and they can speak with the deputy chief, and we can, you know, put out some overtime. We have to follow the collective bargaining agreement when it comes to overtime, but to put some additional manpower on the street.
Okay. Can I have a follow-up? So currently, are you looking to fill 4 positions, 5 positions? What's open at this point?
Well, it's now 5. So, and I currently have, well, I don't know when his last day worked is going to be. So, but as I sit right here now, 4 positions. I have 4 open positions right now, and I've got 2 on have had applications for disability, and we can't replace them until a determination is made by the pension board. So that's 4. The possibility of 2 more, 6, and the one I just found out about 20 minutes ago. I'm not sure when his last date is. So.
Okay. I have one more question, Mayor.
Floor is yours, Alderman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief. I mean, I certainly have an appreciation for the hiring piece. I mean, it's not just, you know, law enforcement. Unfortunately, it's a very challenging time, and in many industries, you know, to find, you know, the right people, you know, to really, you know, support the business, or in this case, you know, the police department. So DUCOM, I mean, you know, when I look at DUCOM from a fire and police perspective, I mean, it's like $600,000 more. So is the bill from DUCOM, is it basically sort of a per dispatch fee? I mean, how do we get charged from DUCOM?
The police department pays based on the number of officers. That's the equitable workload that they've determined, that, you know, an agency that has fewer officers is not going to see the volume in terms of calls for service and 911 calls to come in, compared to an agency that's going to be larger, and they're going to have more sworn officers. So they do it by number of sworn.
Okay, got you. Thank you. Then my last question's on page 126, line item 8006. So it looks like you're, and per the, you know, the attached, it looks like you're looking to purchase, 6 marked cars and 2 additional police vehicles. I see the expeditions driving around, what is the current thinking? Is that the vehicle of choice? I mean, when we're looking for these new purchases, what are some of the factors that are going into, deciding on what we buy?
Yeah. The equipment that we carry, there's a lot of equipment compared to years ago when it was just red lights and a siren and a radio, and that was it. Now we've got computers in the cars, mobile data terminals. They print tickets out inside the vehicles. We're carrying first aid equipment, AEDs. We've deployed the ballistic shields into some of the patrol cars, just so we have those in the event that there's an incident that rises to that challenge in terms of an active shooter or a barricaded subject or maybe a suicidal subject. So we have a majority of our fleet are the Ford Explorers, but the supervisor cars are the Tahoes. They've got much more equipment in them. We operate a few Tahoes. The Ford Explorer that you see is an evidence technician vehicle, so there's cameras and fingerprint equipment and all of that stuff, lighting and that type of stuff, and a few 2 or 3 Chevy Tahoes, and again those are carrying much more equipment. But we've got a variety sizes of officers. We've got some 6'6", 6'7" officers, and having them, climb into some of the smaller cars can be a challenge. So we've got a fleet. We're unusual because we've got a fleet of many different types of things. I think we've got 2 Dodge Charger sedans, and the problem that we've experienced with them is they have a tendency of getting rear-ended while they're on traffic stops. So you got all the lights going, and Public Works does a really good job in terms of lighting of the cars, but we're getting rear-ended on the sedans. So we're seeing some of those things come in.
So the variety in the fleets, not that we're trying to figure out which one's the best, they serve different purposes,
Correct.
Is what I'm hearing. Okay,
Correct,
thank
yes.
you.
Alderman Hill.
Just a small follow-up question to Alderman Brennan's questions, I think, or something I wanted to find out more about, Chief. It's when we purchase the new vehicles, do we trade in existing vehicles to defray some of those costs, or are we selling those? I know we recently had explored GovPlanet and other auction sites that would help us take those vehicles that were at end of service life and maybe get more for them if we were just to dispose them, or whatever we would do is junk them, I guess. So what do we do with cars that have reached the end of their service life, I guess is my question.
Well, currently what we've done, at least in the police department, from our budget, and it goes before the Public Affairs and Safety Committee, is a trade-in on the car. And so when they bid the cars out, they also bid the trade-in as well. So sometimes you'll see maybe the car costs a little bit more, but we get a lot more for a trade from one dealership compared to the other. So usually that's a Public Works matter, but it's a trade-in.
And if I may, maybe we could circle back to that with Public Works and just talk a little bit more about whether it would be more advantageous to sell those through some sort of liquidation site like GovPlanet versus using those as trade-in values. But
Now, just to be clear, that's Public Affairs and Safety, isn't it? We're doing the trade-ins.
Yeah, as Chief said, when someone in the police department or any department goes to the fleet services side of Public Works, talks about what they're looking for, maybe talks about what they need to carry, talks about the fuel efficiencies and what type of engine, the director of fleet will also make the decision, should we trade it in, or should we sell it outright, or should we keep it in the fleet? Because if just vehicles may not be serviceable for police anymore, but we can use it as a pool car often for City Hall folks or even Public Works to run errands. So that's another option that we have. But typically something like that would be discussed at the committee level versus at the budget level. But whatever the council would like to do, Mayor.
Want to circle back on that?
That'd be fine, Mayor, thanks.
All right, your first circle back. And Chief, just for clarify, do we bid these out in pools like, there used to be like a statewide bid list that you could buy off of?
Yes. If the car is on that state purchase agreement, yes, we follow that.
All right. Additional questions? Alderman Toledo.
Just wanted to take my mask off.
You don't have a question, do you? Just want-
I do have a question. I was actually recruiting on our behalf, and I got a question that is somewhat facetious, but also relevant to the budget, which is, do we accept laterals? And my question is related to the budget in that if we're struggling to get kind of brand new off the list officers, and experienced officers are better because they get onto the street faster, do we have a plan, or do we ever, or why would we not maybe recruit from existing departments, especially one nearby that I know maybe doesn't like where they're working right now? How does the salary implications work? What is a lateral? How would that affect our budget if we were to recruit, existing officers versus kind of hiring a brand new officer?
Right. The training of the officers, at least the academy costs, are reimbursed by the state once a year. So there's a cost savings, but it's kind of it's minimal. I think our big savings occurs with salary and the downtime that they're down. We have for many years recruited at colleges, universities. There's a spot, most people who are looking for police officer jobs, it's called the Blue Line. And you go online and it tells you who's hiring and what their salaries are and all that stuff. So that's out there. In terms of trying to aggressively recruit from our neighboring communities, I don't know that may be the best, although if they wish to find it on their own and come here, we would love to have them. But I think it could cause some hard feelings if we took a hard line trying to take officers from another community. And somebody may in turn try to do the same thing to us. So
I would add, though, that Chief and I have had a number of discussions about lateral transfers and amending the Board of Fire and Police Commission rules, which would be necessary for us to do that. And so that's something that we are exploring that we'll take to Public Affairs and Safety as soon as it's, because we think it is a beneficial process for us, because as Chief said, while we may not go out and recruit, there would be interest in officers coming here, we believe.
Right, so thank you for both of those answers. So just to put a point on it, currently our police commissioner board has rules that dictate how the hiring and all that works, and it does not allow for our laterals currently. That would require council action. Can you just explain that a little bit more fully?
Go ahead, Chief, please.
We currently follow the rules from the Board of Fire and Police Commission, and they are the ones that have to give an eligibility test. Candidates that pass the test are ranked, and then there's an interview, and there's a set process. Some of the agencies that are doing lateral transfers have a standing list that they would normally have, and then also put something out where they would basically fast track current certified police officers that wouldn't have to go through the testing process. They would still be subject to the background investigation, an oral interview, a structured oral interview, a polygraph, and a psychological, as well as a medical. But it's just a way of kind of being able to fast track some of those already trained and eligible candidates.
And then, so there is you can take those in now, or you need to change some rules to do so? I'm still not quite clear.
Yeah, in order for us to have a true lateral transfer, that would require a change in the rules for the Board of Fire and Police Commission. And, but current police officers now can take our test and then go through the process that way.
I see. But not city council. To change the commissioner's rules, the commission would vote on that and change their own rules. It does not require involvement or approval from the city council. Yes or no?
I believe that's the city council.
I believe it's city council as well, and we'll get back to you on that just to clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
So are we calling that a circle back?
I guess so.
All right.
Or just email me.
All right, well, the council may be interested, but either way. All right, additional discussion. Alderman Dunn?
Yeah, just a few pointed questions. Just to confirm, our officers are still outfitted with Narcan and EpiPens, and we're budgeted for that to continue to have those available, I assume?
Yes. All of the patrol vehicles on the street have AEDs in those vehicles. And inside the AED holder is Narcan. So all patrol vehicles have Narcan and AEDs, and we've got replacements already in the budget for those items. I think that the Narcan was previously given to us by the DuPage County Health Department, but in the event that funding is no longer available, we'll have the ability to absorb that within the budget.
Okay. And the EpiPens also, are we still carrying?
EpiPens as well, yes.
Okay. My other question, so one of the areas of crime that has escalated dramatically is identity theft. It's not a major crime, but it's certainly a problem. Is there any budget enhancements to address that?
There currently is not. What we've done is we've fast-tracked many of the cases that have occurred to our residents, and fast-tracked that to the federal authorities so that they can handle the investigation for that. What we're seeing now is many of the identity theft and financial scams that are occurring have connections outside of this country. So money's being transferred. There's a lot of victims, and also we saw it with unemployment scams. We saw it with tax refunds for identity theft for those things, and sharing that information with the federal authorities is what we've done so far.
Okay, but nothing different this year?
No.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Alderman Nudera?
I just have a quick question. Is there a potential for leasing vehicles as opposed to buying vehicles?
You know, I'm not aware of any, but maybe Public Works may be in a better position.
And I'm talking about your police cars.
Yeah, there are leasing programs out there, and we look at them time to time. As I understand it, though, it's the companies that do that are pretty much an all or nothing option, and as we rotate ours, basically every 3 to 4 years, depending on the mileage, somewhere in that 80 to 100,000 mile range, it doesn't seem to line up, but we certainly keep that option open, as if it saves us money and gives us the same quality product, no reason we wouldn't look at that.
Okay.
Alderman Deuter?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, when you were answering the question about the different types of police vehicles, you mentioned that some of the vehicles have a barricade, like I forget what you called it, but a shield that officers can use?
Yes, a ballistic shield.
Ballistic shield. It sounds like they're not in all the vehicles, and I'm just wondering, going back to the asset forfeiture discussion, would more equipment, more safety equipment for the officers be an eligible use of that? And if so, do we need more of those ballistic shields, or is there any other equipment for the officers that you would recommend?
Yeah, having the ballistic shields, they're already carrying a lot of equipment in the cars. That's why we've placed the ballistic shields in the full-size Explorers, full-size vehicles, such as the two supervisor Tahoes, some of the other Tahoes that are on the street, the evidence technician vehicles. These are the larger full-size things. We're constantly looking at new equipment that's out there, new equipment, new technology, to try to provide better police service, to keep our employees safe, and those are things that we continue to look at. But, is placing a ballistic shields an eligible expenditure? Yes, but we don't have the room to place them in some of the sedans, and it's a little tight on some of the Explorers.
Chief, do you want to explain, because they're not like bulletproof vests, you want to explain when you would use that shield?
Yeah, the shields, are a pretty good size. There's a piece of bulletproof glass on there, and it would be used in situations where there's an armed gunman or an armed assailant and something like that. And there are some lighter shields out there, but they don't provide the safety and support that we need. So if someone has a rifle, it's going to go right through it, and they'll be hurt. They're pretty heavy, they're pretty big, and they can be pretty cumbersome.
Can I just make a follow-up comment?
Sure. Floor is yours.
Chief, at some point a few years back, you were talking at an event where it was a group of folks who were talking about school safety, and one of the questions you were asked was, how has the police response changed over time to active shooter events? And you walked through, it used to be that the SWAT team would assemble and you'd wait for the SWAT team to assemble, and when they were ready, then a group would go in. And it evolved over time to whoever arrives goes in.
Right.
And that story has stuck with me, and it chills me every time I think about it, that it might just be one of those officers who's showing up. So when you mention the ballistic shield, it's just, if we can equip our officers to be better prepared to ask for the things, to deliver on the things we ask them to do. Right. Seems critically important, but I can understand it doesn't work with every vehicle.
Yes, and that type of a call is going to be a multiple car response. So we will have additional, squad cars, additional help patrol cars there, usually within 60 seconds of the first officer arriving. So there's going to be, multiple people with that. One of the other things that we've done recently is something called a tactical patrol officer, a TPO, where officers have specialized training, and they're carrying some specialized gear and equipment, and there's a small sticker on the side of the patrol car that says, TPO or something. Yeah, TPO Elmhurst on it. So it denotes to us what vehicles have that level of equipment in it, and the officers that are assigned those cars have specialized training, so we can rapidly respond to any situation that occurs, and we can deploy our people in the fastest way possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, other questions, discussion? I have a question I'd like to ask. I should probably know the answer, but we have body cam legislation, which I think is getting adjusted, but is the cost for the body cams, looked like the original crime prevention or crime bill didn't really have a source for those. Is there anything in our budget for that, or are we waiting to see who's going to pay for it later?
I haven't placed anything into this year's budget. Based on the law that was passed, we would have until 2025 to have all of our officers wearing body cameras. So, it's quite an expensive ordeal, because you have to have one for every officer. There's the storage of that data. The software goes into the cloud. It can be FOIA'd. We have to have those body camera, basically evidence, ready for court. So there's a lot of, behind-the-scenes work that's required with the implementation of a body camera. Let me walk you through an event. Say there's a fight at an establishment, and 4 officers respond to that call, and the supervisor hears the call and responds as well. Each officer that responds has got their body camera on, so if an arrest is made, for example, battery or something, a minor injury, we would have to gather the body cams from each one of those 4 officers and the supervisor, so 5, put that together and have that included in the case report so that it's discoverable, under the Brady rule that there would be evidence out there. So, that could take a lot of time and effort. So there's more than just, hey, we'll purchase this. I think there needs to really be a plan when we do it. We are looking at it. We're looking at the costs. We're looking to see what vendors are out there, and you're probably talking between $420,000 to $530 or so, based on our preliminary estimates of what it is. So it's on our radar. We're watching it. We're looking at it. We're trying to evaluate it, but we have not included it in this year's budget or next year's budget.
I mean, I do think, obviously, I know that there's discussions that other municipalities are talking about common software and how we do it, but it seems like it has the potential to cut down on liabilities significantly. But all right, additional questions on police? All right, well, Chief, thank you for your time. Thank you. I think everyone appreciates the work the police department has done for us here in Elmhurst. I don't think it makes sense to start a new topic, so we will entertain a motion to adjourn and pick this up next. Alderman Deuter with a motion, second by Alderman Brennan. I'm going to chance a voice vote on this. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned.